As we wait to hear from Senator McConnell and other Republican senators, I want to bring in Republican Congressman from New York and a member of the House Committee on Agricultural, Congressman John Faso. Congressman, it's good to have you here, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good. I want to get to trade in just a second with you. I know that there's a big impact on New York, but I want to start first with the latest on the Cavanaugh hearings. Chuck Schumer now asking for a full briefing for the Senate on the results of this FBI investigation, which technically the results aren't due until Friday. What do you make of all the goings-on with the Cavanaugh hearings from the sidelines where you're sitting right now?
Well, I just think that, frankly, the FBI should do their job, get the review completed. This would be, I think, the seventh review that Judge Cavanaugh has had during the many appointments that he has served the people in the federal government. And I think we'll see what the FBI says. But I also think that Senator Schumer is not exactly being sincere here, because his approach right from the get-go was to oppose Kavanaugh. And I think all their Senate Democrats are doing now is hoping for further delay. Let's see what the FBI comes up with, if anything. My sense is that there's not going to be any difference in terms of the FBI review, but let's see what they discover.
All right. They seem to be coming up with everything to throw at him in the book. He rooted for the Philadelphia Eagles won Super Bowl. Therefore, he should not. I mean, there's just so many issues that are being thrown at the guy right now. Let's talk about trade, though. And I know that you certainly have been a big proponent of opening up the Canadian market for those constituents that you have in your district, in particular those dairy farmers. How happy were you with the results of the Canadian-Mexican deal? And is it really a good deal, do you think, for American farmers?
Well, I haven't had an opportunity to read the deal yet, and I want to do that. But let me tell you, I think the Trump administration and the president, their strategy worked in terms of dairy, for instance. New York is the third largest dairy state in the country. A lot of people are surprised to hear that. But in upstate New York, we have a lot of dairy farmers, and they've been hurting, and they've specifically been hurting because of the unfair restrictions that the Canadians have put on so-called Class 7 milk. This is an ultra-filtered milk product that's used in production of cheese and other dairy products. It's easy to transport. A lot of New York farmers were shipping ultra-filtered milk up to Canada, and then the provinces and the national government in Canada put these arbitrary restrictions on. And at the same time, they've been flooding the international market, which has depressed the price. So this has been a real problem. Our dairy farmers across the country are getting paid today about the same in actual dollars that they were in 1982. So how many of us could survive if we were earning the same dollars that we were in 1982? That's the condition on America's dairy farms. And so the president is right in what he's accomplished here. I think the president has hit a home run for our dairy farmers. We have to do a lot more, like getting whole milk into the school lunch program once again. That was something that the Obama administration did, and we have to reverse that too.
Okay, well, that's something that you can take up certainly with the president. And I know that you were very, very keen writing a lot of letters to whether it was Robert Lighthizer or to other officials about what you wanted to see with this deal. Now we have it. My question, though, there was a really interesting op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today talking about the positives and some of the negatives with regards to trade. And they did bring up the Canadian dairy market, which is near and dear to you. And one of the points they made is that at the end of the day, maybe American dairy farmers will only have access to about 1% of the Canadian market because there are still other as you say, these crazy rules in place from the Canadians. They didn't just wipe away everything. It was just that one particular piece with that 275% tariff. So do you think that this goes far enough for dairy farmers?
Well, I think what it does, it's a pretty clear signal that the U.S. is not going to abide by these kind of arbitrary rules that the Canadians put forward. And so I don't think you'll see additional rules like this in the future. Go to North Dakota, the wheat farmers. If you were growing U.S. wheat in North Dakota and you shipped it to a grain elevator in Canada, the Canadians were arbitrarily saying that wheat, despite its quality, was only fit for feeding animals instead of humans. So that rule has gone away. And out in British Columbia, they had a rule that said you couldn't put American wine on the shelves in the stores in British Columbia. That has gone away. So I'm hopeful that we can have a more robust and fulfilling trade relationship with our Canadian friends, and they are our friends going forward. And I think the president deserves accolades for the posture that he took on dairy and these other matters.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I wanted to go on to the other issue, the bigger trade story, and really the backdrop of all of this, and that is China. That is the next big negotiation that has to take place. I mean, we've seen Steven Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, attempt to have meetings. Robert Lighthizer, even Pompeo has been involved in all of this. At the end of the day, the Chinese really still aren't coming to the table. Having said that, do you have faith in the president after this Canadian-Mexico deal has been put into place? Not signed, but put into place. Do you have faith now that the president can effectively negotiate with the Chinese and help American businesses who right now maybe are struggling with these tariffs that are being put in place on both sides between the Chinese and the U.S.?
Yeah, I would hope, actually, that we can come to an agreement on steel and aluminum with the Canadians very quickly as well. Because I hear from small manufacturers in my district in upstate New York telling me that they are seeing 40% price increases for steel and aluminum, and they can't match that in the United States in terms of getting their supplies. So it's created uncertainty. So I think the uncertainty is what a lot of farmers and manufacturers were worried about. I think the president's move here with Canada and Mexico will give reassurance. But we really do have to go after the Chinese and their unfair theft of our intellectual property, their violation of WTO rules. The Chinese don't play fair, and it's time that we really acted upon that and reckoned with it. And I think the Trump administration and the president have laid down a marker here, and they have sent a signal with this agreement now with Mexico and Canada that we're going to be tough negotiators on these issues. We shouldn't be taken advantage of by the Chinese.
And
it did work.
And, I made the point this morning on Fox News that, I think that at the end of the day, the Chinese have more to lose than we do with regards to these tariffs. They export a lot more to our country than we do to theirs. And I think that at the end of the day, that's going to be the true test, I think, of this negotiation. Congressman, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Appreciate your time.